Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Only Run Very Noob, bringing you Bravo gameplay using Talishar. Today we're playing against Dromai. I think this matchup went from very favored a little while ago to sort of a 50-50 matchup now. They play like a bunch of attacks. They can threaten your life total without like just losing to a popper. And them playing Remembrance just kind of lets them play a bunch of Chromais and Mirror Guys in a game if they don't, they can even just use the Remembrance to go get like extra E-strikes and stuff to have attacks that you can't pop with your pitch stack. I do think, I don't think we're 55-45 favorites, but I don't think they are either. I think it's closer to 50-50 with maybe Bravo getting a few percentage points. Like it might be like 52-48 Bravo's favor. Um, Dromai players might disagree, but I feel like Bravo has all the tools to beat Dromai, especially with the Tunic build that we play now, because we have E-strikes in addition to our Zealous Beltings, and I think it has more poppers. Not that Dromai just loses to poppers anymore, but I think it has slightly more poppers than like the old 40 blue build would. Um, and we still get to play all the poppers we want to while still having Pummel and E-strike, which is nice. If you were on like 38 to 40 blues, you definitely didn't have room for E-strike and Pummel. And Pummels are pretty nice just to push damage, and E-strike is very good for go again. And also in endgame scenarios for pushing damage when your Dromai opponent's at a very low life total. Um, there's nothing too like special or different about this matchup these days. From Bravo's side, like we're still just trying to pressure them and end their turns with poppers when we can. Although that's a lot harder. They play, Ravenous Rabble, E-strike, and I've even seen like Scar for a Scar more lately. And of course, you can't pop those. But as we see here, they're on Crown of Dominion and Tome these days, so with more zero blocks in their deck and less armor, it can be a little easier to sneak in like a dominated attack to really cripple their turn. If you can dominate a Crippling Crush and do 8 damage and make them discard 2 cards, those are the sort of games that Bravo is winning. So we see our opponent pop their gold immediately to make some Ash, fairly standard. We see them pitch Chromai, Command and Conquer, and Snatch. So it looks like they want those Chromais late, which makes sense. Our hand isn't ideal. But I do think I just want to throw my Command and Conquer over pitching the Spinal Crush so that you can get some poppers pitch stacked. Because we can't Arsenal 2 cards, and we would much rather have Crippling Crush and Arsenal. If we ever have a turn cycle where they don't have a Arsenal and we can dominate a Crippling Crush, that can be very strong. Of course, they do have outs to that if they play like Sand Cover, but you still shoot your shots when you can. Sometimes they even just let this Command and Conquer hit because they're afraid of Pummel. So instead of like blocking 6 and then just like getting pummeled to lose all their stuff, they will just like take 6 and lose their arsenal. I noticed that being like a more common play when you're threatening pummel with Command and Conquer. And we get one of their tomes, which seems strong for us. We have 3 blues and a Zealous Belting. We kind of would like Zealous Belting in our arsenal. I really like to have Zealous Belting or E-strike in our arsenal as some sort of insurance. But I don't think we're going to be able to get it into our arsenal this turn cycle. As I mentioned before, I see a Scar for a Scar. It's gaining some traction in the Dromai list. It's like another 4 go again. Doesn't always have go again, but you can usually play the game in such a way that it will. And I'm pretty sure I just let that hit. They have another one. I think I'm just going to let that one hit as well. I'm really looking to use one of my blues to like pop the Yendurai or a Kyloria or something, and then um, Zealous Belting into Hammer to threaten. But it's a little fortunate. They don't want to lose one of their dragons to a Pauper here, so they just pass. I guess building a board up for when they draw Miragai or like Dromai or something and they feel they can go super wide. But this is the exact thing we kind of wanted here. I really wasn't expecting this to happen, but now we can dominate this Crippling Crush when they don't have an Arsenal and Arsenal our go again attack. So it's kind of like we can just do it all here. And yeah, we had to pay 8 life, but unless they have a sand cover, they're going to be paying 8 life here as well. They just end up taking 11, which seems a little aggressive from them. That's just like a lot of damage to take, and I feel pretty good about my position, even like this early in the game. So they probably wanted to keep the Miragai, and they're like, well, if I don't hit their Miragai with the Crippling Crush, they can play it and have a Kyloria without Phantasm. But I'm not sure if that's good enough to just take 11 there. That's like a lot of life to give up. So they're going to attack with Kyloria without Phantasm, and how are we going to block? We have a Zealous Belting and Arsenal. We could use armor and like a card, but I don't really think I want to use armor if we're definitely trying to block Kyloria and then attack a Miragai. We could potentially like Zealous Belting Miragai and then hammer their face for 6. But I think I'd rather just save armor. Maybe block with Showtime plus Zealous Belting, which seems a little weird. But so we're going to have a yellow and a red behind. And if they let us keep both of these cards, we can know those Miragai. But even if they attack with Yendurai and force us to use a card to pop it, we can still hammer off the Starstruck and the Tunic counter. So I think I just like... I would rather attack with Zealous Belting than block with it, but it allows us to save a little armor, and we already have a Zealous Belting and Arsenal as our insurance plan against some sort of Miragai passing Mirage line or something, so that we just definitely can clear whatever problem dragons there are. They don't attack with a second dragon, which is consistent with their line before, where they're not really trying to get them popped. They're just trying to like build the board instead of pressure us. So we get to keep our Tunic counter for whatever that's worth. And this is kind of nice if they don't have like a really good turn here, or like they don't threaten like a Miragai or a passing Mirage, we can pop with one of our blues and then use Tunic counter to just throw a Crippling Crush without Dominate. Another thing I should note is that fatiguing them is like a reasonable option. It's not really a plan I like as a plan A, but they only had 61 cards, so fatigue is definitely an option here. They play a Miragai and attack with Kyloria. I guess you already see here I'm blocking with Imposing Visage, but do I block with armor or another card here? Blocking with another card sort of gets punished by passing Mirage. Or does it really? I guess if I block with Crippling Crush, I don't really get punished by passing Mirage. They play passing Mirage, and then I can Belting Miragai hammer passing Mirage. If I block with a non-Crippling Crush card, though, I get punished by passing Mirage, kind of. Well, no, because I have Tunic counter up. So I can still Zealous Belting and hammer. And I kind of like that. I don't really like using equipment when I know I'm already trying to target the Miragai, and I only need one card behind to do that. Any additional cards aren't really getting that much value here. So I think I will block with the Choke Slam in this Sorry for misspeaking a little earlier. This still doesn't lose the Passing Mirage. If they play Passing Mirage here, they will still get kind of got. Dromai, however, is a little bit tougher. Oh, and they just end the turn. It looks like they're really committing to building a board. They don't even want to attack with Dromai and then threaten Yendurai to like get the damage in. Because if we pop Dromai with Crippling Crush and they attack with Yendurai, we definitely can't block it because we need the blue to attack into Miragai. But I do think I'm going to use Zealous Belting to clear Miragai and Dromai here. And just sort of keep this board under control. Just think, like, I don't really want to leave Dromai. I don't love attacking Dromai, but we've drawn a bunch of poppers, so I'm expecting to draw some hands that'll be popper light. And if they already have a Dromai on board and we draw a popper light hand, that could get us into a lot of trouble. But one thing to note is that they are lower on life, kind of. Like we have a pretty good life lead and they're pretty low on life, so maybe just attacking their life total instead of the Dromai is fine there. But even if we wanted to attack life total, we probably aren't using the Zealous Belting just to attack life total. We would still probably just attack Miragai and then like leave the Zealous Belting in arsenal. So kind of like clearing up the Dromai there. This isn't a truly popper light hand. We have two. Pummel's a little awkward, but we'll see how this turn goes and how they plan on attacking us. They're pitch decking some attacks thanks to their tome. And they play another Yendurai, which I don't think... I mean, if they play consistently like they have all game, I don't think they're going to be attacking with the Yendurai or any other board. They just set up a Dromai Ash. So really the decision here is what do we want in arsenal? Because we're going to throw the Debilitate off of a blue and a red. I think I'd rather have Pummel in arsenal, just because pitching like Boulder Drop next to Pummel is a little ugly late. But we've already seen them pitch a lot of attacks for late, like attack action cards that can't be popped, right? So maybe the popper density in our pitch deck isn't of the utmost importance, although it's certainly something you want to keep an eye out for, and you don't want like a hand with no poppers, especially with the way they've been playing. They haven't been putting their dragons in harm's way, so at the end of the game, I'm assuming they're going to have a bunch of dragons unless we decide to just start attacking them. But arsenaling the Pummel is nice. Next turn we're going to have 2 Tunic counters, which isn't quite enough to like pummel a CNC off 1 blue. But the turn after we will, and the Pummel late might be kind of hard to use with a low life total. So we might want to... So I think I'm going to pitch Crippling Crush plus Boulder Drop to just debilitate their face. That is what we end up doing. I check my graveyard, probably looking for CNCs to see, are we going to draw a CNC with this Pummel anytime soon? Turn 5, and we still have 2 in our deck. Still quite a few turns before we've seen our entire deck, though. But CNC isn't the only Pummel target. Like, it's pretty good to Pummel Debilitate or Chokeslam or whatever, but it's probably quite a bit better to Pummel CNC in this matchup, because the Chokeslam Crush effect doesn't really do anything to Dromai. And the Debilitate effect, while being okay, usually just means like their first Ashwing attacks for 0. They just rake the Embers and pass. They don't even want to put their Ashwing into harm's way, which is definitely interesting to me. I feel like the Ashwings, they should be pressuring our hand size, because our turn gets significantly worse. Well, I guess our turn's only 2 damage worse if they make us pop this with Spinal Crush, because we'll E-Strike go again into like Hammer for 4. Where here we're E-strike, go againin, bottoming the pummel, and then hammering for 6, kind of pitching spinal and debilitate. Unfortunately, we don't have like a hand that we can pummel something, but that's okay. It would have been nice to have like 3 blues in a Spinal Crush here, because then we could like dominate spinal and then pummel the dominated spinal for a bunch of damage, and also limiting what they can do next turn. Not that they've really been attacking us a lot. So I definitely think I just E-strike for 5 and then hammer for 6. Maybe I really want E-strike in Arsenal to like counter some sort of big board that they want to play out. And if that's the case, then I guess pummeling a Nothos for 10. Yeah, that actually... Maybe I do just want to pummel a Nothos for 10. It's only 1 less damage and I get a go again attack in Arsenal. Yeah, I think that might be better. Let's see if Past Me actually came to that conclusion as well. Because the easy line is to just like preserve the pummel in Arsenal and like get in for 11. I do the rare thinking, please bear with me. I don't really use that a lot. So I must really be thinking here if I want to upgrade the pummel in my arsenal to an E-strike. I feel like that's the only consideration. I feel like throwing spinal off of pitching E-strike disable pummel isn't exactly what I'm thinking about. And it looks like I am hammering. So I do the play that I think is better. I actually eventually get there. Seems that my thought process today is similar to what it was before. Definitely wasn't like an easy line for me to come to, just like today. It was the second line I kind of considered. But go again attack in Arsenal is just, it makes me feel so much safer than any other card in Arsenal, because if they do like, because they have Dromai Ash especially, if they play like Dromai and Demir I definitely want to get rid of both of those threats. They come in for a Ravenous Rabble. They reveal Sink Below, so they'll have a Sink Below next turn. I can probably block with Terra Sunder to just preserve life here. Because even if they played like Dromai and Demir let's see. So if they play Dromai and Demir after this Ravenous Rabble, I could only pop one thing and then they can attack me with their whole board. Because I would need to save a blue and a card to put on bottom with E-strike. So yeah, I think not blocking this Ravenous Rabble is safer. And maybe they even just like play a Passing Mirage and like let me keep my full hand, which would let me pummel the debilitate. Once I decide not to block the first Rabble, not blocking the second Rabble's probably a lot easier. But here they're coming in with a third Ravenous Rabble. They just get to 3-card like 12 me, pretty good. And I just take that one too. I'm not sure why I took that one though, because they definitely can't Dromai Mirror Guide me with only 1 card behind. But maybe I really want to try to pummel this debilitate for some reason and like get them dead. They attack me with a Snatch here. Now this Snatch is pretty scary because they don't have any cards behind, so even like not using Snapdragon Scalers, it's getting a lot of value for a card in Arsenal, which we know is a Sink Below. But they could also, if they don't want us to keep our whole hand, they can also Snapdragon it into like attacking with their dragons. I think the line here is block with Pummel and Crater Fist. And then if they attack with dragons, block with Macho Grande. We have Tunic Counter up next turn, so we'll just use pitch Terra Sunder, use Tunic Counter to throw Debilitate raw. We could also just kind of block with Terra Sunder and Pummel, but I think that's significantly worse because then we pop with the red Debilitate and just hammer for 4. Although hammering for 4 would probably just get rid of the Kyloria. Although they only have one Mirror Guy left in their deck, I think, which is really the only super scary card with Kyloria. Dromai with Dromai Ash is definitely good, but that doesn't like... We can still pop Kyloria, right? It's not like it's going to not have Phantasm. And the Passing Mirages don't have Go Again, so Kyloria without Phantasm is basically just his last Mirror Guy that can do that. Oh wow, I block with all my equipment because I guess I really want to pummel this Debilitate. And that seems super face up, like I want to keep my hand, so I wouldn't be surprised if he Snapdragon Scalers here to like make me give him a card. And that is what we see. But here, now that we didn't block with the Pummel, I think we just block with the Debilitate and then pummel the hammer for 10. Because they're like at 15, so they can't just take 10 here. Or if they can, they'll be in, I think, a lot of trouble. They just won't have enough wiggle room to really do their sort of big board sort of stuff. But maybe he has like Mirror Guy and Dromai in his hand and he's like just totally okay with taking 10 here to force us to start answering his board. But at these life totals, I feel quite far ahead. They still have all their armor, which is definitely something to keep track of. We do not have very much armor because of how we blocked that Snatch last turn. Here, yeah, we just pop here. Not sure why he wouldn't play the Dromai. With his life total being low, I think he wants to start producing threats that we need to answer instead of pitch stacking for later. Because there's still 40 cards in his deck, including that Dromai he pitched, and that's like 10 turns of hands away. With them being at 5, I think I really want to start pressuring life total. And to me, that means E-Strike Go Again into Command and Conquer. Getting rid of our Go Again attack may be a little risky, but just pressuring their life total when they're at 5 seems correct to me. Especially because we can't use our hand efficiently in another way, like we would just be throwing Command and Conquer at them. But it's going to be really hard for them to keep a hand big enough to play like Dromai and Mirror Guy, which is really what the Go Again attacks would be to be used to clean up here. They could go like Dromai Passing Mirage, potentially. And the Dromai would be a must-answer threat with their Ash that removes Phantasm from Dromai. We get some armor here. And this might be one of their last opportunities to like play a board. Interestingly enough, he has no Ash besides the Dromai Ash. Alright. So what is the play here? He played a red, so they all go again, so I think we definitely have to pop this. We can't just like take 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 here. So what are we doing? I kind of like taking the Arcane, popping with Starstruck, using Tunic and Blue to just throw Chokeslam at face, and then arsenaling Enlightened Strike. The Chokeslam is 1 less damage than like popping with Chokeslam, E-Strike for 5, go again, and then Hammer for 4. But it lets us have an E-Strike in Arsenal at the end of the turn. We do use our Tunic counter though. But I think that's fine. Yeah, he's got to use his Furnace to start making some Ash here. And 8 damage is a lot when you're at 3. He's going to have to block this with 2 cards, probably like Defense Reaction and 3 block. If it's just 2 3 blocks, he'll go to 1, and then Hammer for 4 at his face is going to be hard to cover up besides D-React, and I don't think he wants to block with his Flamescale Furnace, only having 1 Ash currently. Definitely feel like a fairly heavy favorite from my position. And yep, 3 block plus defense reaction, because I feel like we've only seen a couple defense reactions this game, so he's going to start drawing them now. It is turn 9, 15 turns. It's generally getting through a 60 card deck if you're drawing 4 cards a turn. I know you're not always drawing 4 cards a turn, but I'd say the most of the time. Plays his 3rd Yendurai. And he's attacking with Ashwing. So we just have to pop. And I'm not sure if I want to just throw Spinal Crush for 9, or if I want to E-Strike for 5 and to Hammer for 6. With them being at 2 though, like 11 is quite a bit more than 9. So I feel like I would rather just E-Strike go again and get their whole hand here. E-Strike go again into Hammer for 6. And with our opponent at 2, very easy decisions to aim at face instead of clear board. They have so many dragons on board too that it's like clearing them to try to turn off burn them all, or like try to pivot to some sort of fatigue plan. I think attacking them is going to fatigue them a lot more than ever attacking the dragons at this point. We get another Sink Below. They have 1 card left in their hand, which could be pretty good. If it's like a Dromai on a Dromai Ash, that could be fairly strong here. They just attack with Aether Ashwing without playing a red, so I think here we just take 2, and then E-Strike 5 go again and Command and Conquer them for 6. Maybe catching them off guard with like another defense reaction in hand that they don't use on the E-Strike. And maybe like surprise killing them with a Command and Conquer here. It's a little unfortunate we can't threaten like dominate on any of these turns. But 5 into 6 should be getting like all of their hand, barring defense reaction in Arsenal or like a Sigil of Solace or something, which we haven't seen all game. So either they're all clumped at the bottom or they're not running it, which I feel like cutting Sigil of Solace has been a lot more common lately than in previous like iterations of the deck. Ooh, we get the sand cover, which pretty good for us because they only had one non-Dromai Ash. So here we're kind of in an interesting spot. If we think this is a defense reaction, we really don't want to Macho Grande them. But we could just take 2 and try to Macho Grande them and Arsenal the Zealous Belting. But if this is one of their defense reactions, I think that's kind of bad because it's only going to cost them 2 cards and then they're going to have 3 cards. Where if we just Zealous Belting plus Hammer their face, they're just going to have to like give us 4 cards. But but if I'm planning to just Zealous Belting into Hammer, like maybe I just want to pop this dragon to like save a life. But I guess Macho Grande and Arsenal could be reasonable. It's probably worth more than 1 life. But not too sure. So we just pop that. And unless he starts making Ash Wings, which probably going to be pretty tough for him without Ash, he's going to have to start threatening us with real dragons that we can start popping and getting off the board. And at this life total, them being at 2, the amount of things that they're even allowed to do is just so limited, and this is why I think them taking that Crippling Crush for 11 at the beginning of the game was just like not the business. Because sure, they got to Mirror Guy and like attack with Dromai without Phantasm, but is that really worth being at 12 instead of 13 right here? They did have the defense reaction on Arsenal, so we feel pretty good about not taking the Macho Grande line. They are going to have a 2-card hand here, though, but they're at 1, so that's also a lot better for us than 2 because we can just hammer their face for 4. And if they don't have a defense reaction, they got to give us Furnace, and I don't think they really want to be giving us Furnace with 0 Ash, although they're kind of just stuck in a tough, really tough spot here. We have plenty of life. So they're like burn them all isn't ever going to start like costing us a card even. They played Mirror Guy. How did they get the Ash? Did they have one before? I don't think they should have been able to play Mirror Guy here. Because you're supposed to, when you play Mirror Guy, you're supposed to target an Ash, unless they targeted this Dromai Ash. No, yeah, I think that's a Talishar bug. I don't think they're supposed to be allowed to play Mirror Guy there. But I guess they do, and I missed it, so I didn't like try to chat with them. Very interesting that you're allowed to do that on Talishar. So what's the plan here? Definitely want to attack Mirror Guy, I think. So I think just giving him Imposing Visage and Rouse the Ancients is the plan here. Yeah, if they weren't able to play that Mirror Guy, I don't think they're supposed to be able to play that Mirror Guy with no Ash. So if Talishar wasn't bugged here, I'm pretty sure we would just like win the game right here. Because they would attack and we would Rouse the Ancients them. And their attack wouldn't have Go again because they wouldn't have played a red. But we'll just keep casting this game as if what they did was fine, I guess. And we'll see if they attack with another dragon. My guess would be no. They do not. So we're just going to Anothos this mirror guy. With 15 life and them at 1, it might be enticing to attack their face, but I don't want this to snowball out of control because they're going to hit those Dromais they pitch stacked fairly soon. Turn 13, I think, is 1 turn early if they played 2 tomes this game. Ooh, I arsenaled that disable very fast. I don't know if I'm supposed to arsenal that, but I kind of see the reasoning with them at 1. Because if I ever get to keep 2 blues, instead of threatening 6, I'm threatening 7, which is... when you're at 1, it's a lot different than 6. They'll basically have to give us their furnace or draw that sink below they just pitch stacked. I think that's their last D-react. I'm not 100% sure, though. Again, they're playing a mirror guy without having any ash. I guess they're just sort of... I don't know how I didn't notice that when I was playing this game. Really do not know how I was missing that. I'm not supposed to be able to do that. Although he could have still played mirror guy like on the Dromai ash. But then he wouldn't have a Dromai ash. And I guess I was wrong. They have another Fate Foreseen there. And Command and Conquer is fine. We're just going to block for 6, I think. Because we're just planning to hammer the mirror guy. Maybe I'm supposed to take 6 there and throw Chokeslam for 8. But at this point, I think we can fatigue them by just not taking a bunch of damage we don't need to. But yeah, very odd that they can play mirror guy like that with no ash on the board. Billowing Mirage gets blocked by Terra Sunder. Again, I think Fatigue is definitely a fine backup plan at this point. Just block as much damage as we can and attack them for as much as we can. Clearing dragons we need to. Nourishing Emptiness is pretty strong here. I think we just block with Starstruck and use the Tunic counter to debilitate him for 8. But he will be able to have a 2-card hand after he blocks with 3 cards. Those Nourishing Emptiness pitch stacked are pretty scary. If this was a closer game, those would probably just kill me. But our opponent was a little liberal with their life total and got themselves into a critical life position before I think they really needed to. They're going for a tome here. It might be another Nourishing Emptiness. Which, let's see. If it's another Nourishing Emptiness, I think we're fine. Dromai on Dromai Ash finally. I think I just blocked that with my non-popper. Maybe I'm supposed to block it with a popper though, and then just pitch my non-popper for a Nothos, because that cost me 1 life here. And I don't really think I want to just be giving up life for no reason. He's finally attacking in, trying to threaten our popper density in our second cycle, but we have plenty of poppers in our second cycle here. If they didn't have Flamescale Furnace, I might attack them with a Nothos. But they're probably also going to hit their Sink Below or their Fate Foreseen like this turn or next turn. So attacking the Dromai is just, I think, safer. Plus they have Flamescale Furnace. If they didn't have Flamescale Furnace and I was getting 2 cards no matter what, that would probably be it. That would probably be the play. I think I'm just checking for Mirror Guys and Dromais. We have 2 Dromais left and no Mirror Guy. And maybe they don't even have Passing Mirage in their deck. I don't think we've even seen one, which would be definitely a very interesting choice. But our opponent only has 14 cards left, and we're at 9. And their Brendamall is going to go away. I don't know how many of the cards in their graveyard are red, but even if they're all red, they're not going to have 9, unless I guess they could play some this turn that aren't dragons. But yeah, they're going to lose their Brendamall, I think. Which has done a significant amount of damage, because we just haven't pitched into it. They gave me the thinking please bear with me message. They must be trying to figure out how they can get as many cards out of me as possible. Because if they only get 1 card out of me, I can dominate a Chokeslam. And that's probably GG. But he might be thinking that he doesn't want to waste his Dromai just to like buy a card. But that's what he ultimately ends up doing, playing a Dromai. We're definitely just popping that. Even if they have their 3rd and last Dromai, we can pop that and then pop the next thing. This game definitely took a turn. It was like 15-2 at some point, like 15 minutes ago, and it's really dragged on. I think block with the Chokeslam and then throw the Disable at their face is an easy decision here. A little bit of Talishar screen lag. Sometimes it won't show you what you do, and then you press a green button and it all loads in. He does have a Lost in Thought he just pitch stacked there. Maybe that'll be a little bit scary. Not 100% sure how many poppers are on our pitch stack. I think we're like fine though. And this is going to cost Furnace plus 2 cards or 3 cards. Either way, I think we're okay. They do have 2 Ash though, so it's not like them losing their Flamescale Furnace is as crippling as it would have been a few turns ago when they had like no Ash. But we got to get it out of the way somehow, and then our Hammer for 4 really starts lighting him up. But it definitely did not look like this game was going to go to fatigue, and now it does. You know, they drew their Sink Below. So they have another Fate Foreseen that they either have in hand right now or they're going to have in hand next turn. It would be nice to just pop something with Crippling Crush and then use Tunic to play the other Crippling Crush, but we do not get to do that. They play Dromai. Kind of sucks, but not really. I still feel like it's going to be very hard for us to lose this game. Just block with Disable and then hammer their face for 6. And they have basically no deck here. So I do think we are going to win through fatigue. But they were at 2 life with like 33 cards left in their deck, so I did not think that fatigue was going to be how this game went, but we actually never found a spot to like close it out, which I think is still fine. Like, I'm okay winning the game however we got to win it. And when it was like 15-2, I sort of felt like the game was really, really in our hands. Like they just weren't going to be able to keep a big hand to do much of anything. Yeah, we'll just block with a non-popper. Totally fine. And then pop with Spinal Crush. And maybe we even just hammer Kyloria here for 4. Yeah, looks like I'm going face. Take a card plus their Flamescale Furnace. And then Arsenal the Pummel. I don't think it really matters. I'm pretty sure they're just very, very dead. Even if we hammer an Ashwing, I think they're very dead. Unless we literally draw no poppers next hand, but even if we draw no poppers next hand, we can just like block and then move on. Because they have no deck, so they can't really do a bunch of stuff here. They're thinking really hard, but I'm not really sure why they're thinking super hard. Because I'm not sure they have any outs at all. We can just block this with Buckle and Rouse the Ancients. Then pop whatever they attack with. And then hammer their face for 4. And take their last 2 cards. So I definitely wanted to show this game. I thought it was interesting how you can win with fatigue sometimes, but it shouldn't ever be your main plan because the easiest way to fatigue them is get them low on life and start making them block with hands they don't want to block with. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this Dromai build is one that you'll see often. It only had 1 Remembrance and it had no Passing Mirage from what I can remember. And I feel like Passing Mirage is just like fantastic. I can't imagine Dromai not playing with that card. It just seems tailor-made for the Bravo matchup. And one of the reasons why we need Go Again attacks is so that we can attack a Mirror Guy and a Passing Mirage. And when we didn't have to do that, we just got to use our Go Again attacks very aggressively and further threaten their life total once they were low and eat up their hands through fatigue. But yeah, this was definitely an interesting one. Not sure if it was very indicative of how most Dromai games will go, but I felt like it was close enough. Even if they had like some remembrances, not sure what they would get back. Maybe like Mirror Guys, but with no life, you don't really have the life buffer to play the Mirror Guys. So, yeah. I feel like my opponent just like left. Yeah. And then we waited for the minute to get used up and click claim victory because they must have just closed their browser at the end of that game. Well, yeah. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Comment, like, subscribe down below. It really makes it fun to do this. I mean, it's fun to do this no matter what for me, but it makes it a lot of fun to interact with you guys and to read your comments and respond to them. And it's definitely an exciting time. Some spoilers have started to come in for the next set, and it's always really hype when the class you play is in the next set because there's a lot of exciting stuff happen. We might get a new legendary equipment. We might get some new toys to play with. And we're certainly going to get new heroes. Not that I really want to change heroes at all. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. And I hope all of you have a wonderful day.